think we're on our way to improve that trend to enable not just microtransactions, but the everyday payments. So you being able to pay rent or make an airline purchase or a hotel reservation, those are the everyday payments that are next for the Lightning Network to tackle before we get to large payments. Lightning doesn't have that issue. When it actually processes a payment, it's final and it happens essentially instantly anywhere in the world. You don't have to worry about getting banned from your bank for making a suspicious transaction or any of that. So that's why I'm building on the Lightning Network now to bring these features and this technology to the rest of the world.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show, I would really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button, which is the easiest way you could show your support for the show and help it grow, as well as making sure you don't miss out any of the future episodes. Also, a big shout out to Stampseed for sponsoring the show. Check out stampseed.com for more information. And now, let's get the episode underway. Welcome to another episode of Your Bitcoin Story, the podcast where we explore the journeys of builders, thinkers, and innovators shaping the future of Bitcoin. I'm your host, Gigi, and today we're diving into the world of Lightning Network and the infrastructure powering Bitcoin's next phase of growth. Joining me is Jesse Shrader, the CEO and co-founder of AMBOSS Technologies. AMBOSS is playing a crucial role in building infrastructure for the Bitcoin Lightning Network, enabling decentralized payments, liquidity marketplaces, and compliance automation in an evolving AI-driven economy. With a background in engineering and systems design, Jesse leads product innovation at the intersection of Bitcoin, scalability, and financial sovereignty. In this episode, we'll uncover Jesse's journey into Bitcoin, the challenges and opportunities in Lightning Network development, and how AMBOSS is paving the way for a more efficient, decentralized, and AI-powered financial future. Jesse, welcome to the show.
What an intro. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure, and thanks for taking the time to come on. And definitely, I'm excited about this one because personally, I've been hearing more and more about AMBOSS for the last year or two, and kind of I delved my own kind of route to Lightning, setting up my own node with a Start9, opening a channel, and kind of seeing AMBOSS keeps popping up, and I was like, I really need to learn more about this. But the best way to learn, I was thinking, I guess, is to get the main man behind the project. So I'm really grateful to have you on today and learn more about it. And I'm sure the audience will also enjoy our conversation today. But before we do, just as we do with all the guests, can you share with us essentially your Bitcoin story, kind of what led you to Bitcoin and eventually the Lightning Network?
Yeah. So I think after graduating with, an engineering degree, I was, looking for a job, but the economy was not so great. It was still recovering from the 2008 financial crisis, where they bailed out the banks. And so I was already a little bit mad about that. And so I took a job working in a temp job working in a call center, and it was providing information on class action lawsuits. And the class action lawsuit that they put me on to start was about overdraft fees and how the banks were essentially reorganizing the debit card transactions to maximize how many overdraft fees that they could charge. That seemed wrong to me, that a bank could essentially implement this policy. And so I was looking for alternatives. And then, later on, just as I was, hearing about investments and stuff, someone brought up Bitcoin. It got exciting. Of course, I bought some, and then the price shot up, and then the price started going down. And then that's when I started to research, what is this thing that I actually bought? Do I sell it? And in that process of trying to figure out, well, one, why did this thing go up? Why is it going down? And that's when I started to learn a lot more about the technology. And, I stumbled onto Andreas Antonopoulos, and he was just talking about how this is a system that can't be corrupted by by banks or government institutions. It really is completely consensus driven. And so that seemed like the true alternative to the banking system that I was looking for. And I mean, I dove in and was trying to use it for everything. And then that's when I realized that using Bitcoin for everyday payments is not a great experience.
Yeah.
You have this whole concept of, confirmation times and, oh, I need 6 confirmations. Actually, maybe I should have more than that. And I've got this timer that's counting down saying that the money needs to arrive by this time. And, waiting around for an hour for a payment to confirm is not a great experience. Although, after learning about it, you realize why it is the way that it is. But it doesn't make a ton of sense for day-to-day payments. So that was really the motivation to start working on the Lightning Network, which was very early in conversations at the time, and now has become just a mainstay of Bitcoin. When you do commerce, like you can go to El Salvador now and you can pay over the Lightning Network. When people talk about Bitcoin payments, they're mostly talking about Lightning payments.
Yeah.
It's not happening on chain anymore. It really is taking over as far as commerce. And when you compare it to like traditional financial systems, it's just so much better because there's no trust involved. It just goes through and processes. I think recently, or this was actually a year and a half ago, that I was processing mid-month payroll for AMBOSS, and during that time, Silicon Valley Bank went bankrupt. I mean, there was that bank run that was going on, and that I didn't think that I was affected because I don't bank at Silicon Valley Bank, but apparently my payroll provider did, because they shortly thereafter reached out to me to say, "Oh, could you send the money again?" Saying, "What do you mean? What happened to the money that you already withdrew from my account?" And apparently that was being held at Silicon Valley Bank in excess of that insured amount. So unless the bank got bailed out, then I was left in the lurch. Like, I'm out
You're on the
money.
cutting board,
And
basically.
yeah, it's and that's not a good situation to be,
No.
because the money had been taken out of my account. It wasn't in my employees' accounts, and it was just vanished essentially. Lightning doesn't have that issue. When it actually processes a payment, it's final, and it happens essentially instantly anywhere in the world. You don't have to worry about getting banned from your bank for making a suspicious transaction or any of that. It just settles, and it works. So that's why I'm building on the Lightning Network now, to like bring these features and this technology to the rest of the world. And I think we've got the right technology to actually do that.
Yeah, and just to add, kind of from the commerce aspect as a merchant, like the advantages of getting a Lightning payment compared to a normal like Visa, basically card payment, is it's final settlement and it's instant access for the merchant. They don't have to wait a few weeks to get access to that actual money, but it's like straight on the go, which I think, especially if you're a small business or like a family run where you like really depend on the cash flow coming in and not having to wait a few weeks for the funds to clear and have access and pay your suppliers, restock and everything, like it makes your life so much more easier and streamlined. So like these are just kind of just a few tip of the iceberg kind of benefits of why merchants should be adopting Lightning payments compared to traditional payment ways, right?
Yeah. I mean, certainly as soon as you start learning about traditional payments, then you start to realize just how much the payments are costing. So like a merchant is probably going to pay in excess of 3% to actually process the payments. And as the consumer, we're celebrating this idea of getting 1% cash back, which just seems great. I mean, it's free money. Where does the money come from? Well, it comes from the merchant, who has to raise their prices to accommodate the payment processing. So, like, really, it's not some magic reward that you're getting out. It's the prices that you're paying are higher because the payment processing is inefficient. The money doesn't move very quickly, and there's also risk for the merchant that they're going to have to price in the risk that you're going to issue a chargeback and say, "Oh, I didn't actually make that purchase," and then the merchant is left to have to kind of fight for the money that they should have received. It's just it's a crazy system.
Doesn't
that
sound like a
is
fair
just
system,
rife
right,
with fraud.
Jesse?
Yeah, it's not. And I think here we're sitting on this technology where Bitcoin, where we have final settlement, where the money just moves. I don't need to trust the other party. There's no mystery. There's no waiting for confirmation times. Like that's the Lightning future. And what's really on the horizon here is Taproot assets, which allow other assets to be transacted over this trustless payment network. So if you're afraid of Bitcoin volatility, which I think most traditional merchants are, like they've heard about this Bitcoin thing, they know it goes up really high in prices. They know that they should have bought some, but they're so afraid of this downside, which like Bitcoin price moves all over the place. But with Taproot assets, like now they can receive a stable coin, which tons of transactions are happening with stablecoins now. That can happen over the same Lightning network that we use for Bitcoin payments, where Bitcoin is the core infrastructure. Bitcoin is what makes it secure. That's a really exciting piece for merchants, because that's when it really starts to disrupt traditional commerce, where you've got payments that essentially cost nothing, and it's got instant settlement. I think this is really the next step forward for Bitcoin. It's not just a store of value. Now it's a medium of exchange, and we're going to continue to explore that over the next years.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's been a lot of kind of conversation, especially with the mempool clearing now in the recent period since the New Year's. I think the first time it was right at the start of the year, which kind of, it was to everyone's surprise, like, wow, like we're sitting at 100K and the mempool like cleared, like what is happening here? And now just a few days ago, and I think at the time of this recording, I haven't checked it now, but earlier this morning I checked the mempool. It was also cleared. It was kind of it just shows that there's either two things. Either people are just like stacking and hodling, which to a certain extent, I used to be a big advocate of just like hodl, like never sell your Bitcoin. But then now I'm more like, if we want to see adoption, we need to spend that Bitcoin. Like just holding it and storing it isn't kind of the end game. It's like get in, hold it for a while, but then you got to spend it and kind of put it back into circulation. And then the second thing was kind of, well, I guess Lightning and Liquid, but more Lightning. So Liquid is still, so to say, pretty small compared to the Lightning network. Kind of the L2s are really taking over. Like most transactions are happening there. That's why, hence, we were sitting at 100K and, the mempool cleared, which actually is a good thing, in my opinion. Like the scarcity of the block spaces, like it shouldn't be congested with tiny little, you paying for your soya latte at the coffee shop shouldn't really be settled on chain. Like there's much more important things to be settled on chain. And then of course we had the ordinals, love it or don't love it. They kind of just congested the chain so much, and like fees just went astronomical. So kind of it was inconvenient to be settling on chain. So kind of had to go to the L2s. But I think going back to kind of the block size wars, which happened, which is crazy to think, nearly 8 years ago, well, finished 8 years ago, is that kind of this whole fight, should we increase the block size? Like, there's no way we're going to scale it. Like, here we are, like, Bitcoin is growing in adoption and nation states are adopting it, and the mempool is cleared, which is crazy, which if you'd have told, the big blockers back then that this would happen, they would be like, no way, like, what are you guys smoking? But like, that is reality, and it did happen. So kind of what's your take, Jesse, on the mempool being cleared?
It's interesting. Like overall, Bitcoin goes through many cycles. We've got our 4-year halving cycle, and also with that comes kind of this speculative wave, where, and also we've got just a lot of liquidity in the system, where things like ordinals inscriptions will really take off as like the idea of digital collectibles. I know Bitcoin is cool, but like what else is around it? I know people are always looking for the next Bitcoin, but some of these additional advancements, or even like memes being stacked on top of this money structure, makes the whole space pretty enticing. We've got kind of this like degen populace, as well as Wall Street and like institutional investors identifying that this asset is super important. And with the mempool cleared, now we don't have to worry about this kind of increasing cost of the congestion of transactions. So it opens up the possibility that Bitcoin could be more distributed, and that's like what the block size limit really imposes, is like, how can I get this asset into as many hands as possible? And with the current block size, I know some folks are concerned about self-custodial lightning. Is there enough block space so that everyone can own just one unspent transaction output, one UTXO per person, in the future world? And there's not enough block space for that. But similar to what you were talking about these layer twos, is that it actually allows more participation in the Bitcoin ecosystem, where you may actually not need to make a Bitcoin transaction itself. You can still benefit from its use, or benefit from the asset through other mediums, whether it be through Liquid or through Lightning, or some of the emerging layer twos and ways to scale Bitcoin. But overall, it's not a threat so much. You actually don't need a ton of transactional activity. Of course, miners may argue with that point. They want to see the additional revenue. They want to go back to the days of ordinals inscriptions, where you just have craziness, and they have this phenomenal bonus attached to every block every 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, you can have the cake and eat it as well, right? Like there's compensations to be made, but like I pity the miners, but I'm happy for the plebs that we can kind of utilize and have when we settle on-chain payments, we don't have to pay crazy fees, but paying a few bucks feels much better. But going back, Jesse, to your story, so kind of segueing from Bitcoin, and then realizing it's not ideal to be settling everyday payments on chain, and then kind of going into exploring Lightning in the early days. At what point did you come about with the idea of AMBOSS? And maybe you could give a little bit of a TLDR for the listeners, because AMBOSS is, some listeners might be thinking, oh, GG got on another Lightning wallet, like what's different here? But the story goes a little bit deeper, so I'll let you, Jesse, kind of share how that came about and essentially what you guys are solving in the space.
Yeah. So like at its core, AMBOSS provides intelligent payment infrastructure. And when you start to get into the Lightning Network, then you realize more and more what AMBOSS provides, and you realize some of the pain points that you experience. So like when you're starting in on the Lightning Network, you have this concept of a payment channel, and you know that you have to open it with someone else. So the first question is like, how do you find that other person? So what we first created with AMBOSS was a Lightning Network Explorer. So how to get in contact and how to connect to some of the other participants of the network. So it kind of functions a bit like a social network that you can like learn a bit more about this character that's on the other side of the internet that you could connect directly to with Bitcoin. So that was the first product that we made, and kind of how we got started with AMBOSS was me teaming up with the creator of ThunderHub, which is an open source node manager for Bitcoin. It's still like the primo node manager for Lightning nodes. So it helps them manage all their channels and actually be able to see with access to the private keys and do the operations of the Lightning node. So we've answered the discoverability problem is what we did with AMBOSS. So how do I find other people on the Lightning Network? How do I connect to them? The second piece was the concept of liquidity. Lightning is a debt-free payment system. So with a debt-free payment system, it means you have to put the capital up first. You're not creating debt and you're not creating credit. And by eliminating those, the debt and credit pieces, you eliminate the need for trust. And so when you have a completely debt-free payment system, you don't need to trust anyone else. You've removed the counterparty risk. So there is actually a market for Bitcoin liquidity on the Lightning Network. And we realized that you can get paid for opening a channel to someone because you're actually giving their Bitcoin additional utility and you're enabling them to receive instant payments. So now you've like added this attribute to your asset that like not only do I have Bitcoin, but it's Bitcoin that teleports value. And that is a really nice feature. So we built a marketplace for people to buy and sell Lightning channels, and it matters who you buy it from. So I don't just want to teleport any random place. I would rather teleport someplace that's strategic for me.
You mean geographically by strategic?
Yeah. So say, for example, the traditional payment destinations. So maybe if you were to open a channel anywhere, you could open a channel to someone who creates wigs. Now, like maybe you're not in the market for that, but like someone else is. So for you, in choosing another entity to open a channel with, like you would probably open to your local store instead. So your local grocery store, your coffee shop that you actively spend money on, because you don't need to pay any fees when you open the channel directly. But if you were to open a channel to the wig shop, that may benefit other people on the network that they could pay through you and buy a wig. Now, I mentioned the wigs because that actually is an issue for one of the wallets that I was speaking with, Neutron Pay, where they were looking to, well, in I believe it's Vietnam, they make a lot of high quality wigs, and there's a lot of demand for it in Africa. But the wigs are actually very expensive. So it's a large payment that is trying to travel through the Lightning Network, which is a challenge when you get into it, and you realize that I need additional liquidity to make a larger payment happen. And with that situation, then it's very clear, we should just have a marketplace where you could buy additional liquidity to make larger payments possible. And so that is really the function of our Magma marketplace, is that you have a market that you could just go to and purchase a new channel, and that would enable you to reach more of the world with larger payments. And that's how I see Lightning Network disrupting things, because the large payments are the really interesting institutional payments. So all of the bank to bank transfers, these are massive payments, and that could happen on the Lightning Network. And like now that we have a marketplace for liquidity that gives Bitcoin an additional form of yield and benefit that doesn't require trust, and it doesn't require you to give up the keys to your Bitcoin. It just allows you to not only hodl, but also earn from that additional attribute that you're giving Bitcoin, which is the ability to teleport value.
Imagine this: the market's crashing, exchanges are freezing withdrawals, but you are cool as a cucumber because you are unruggable. By joining my Become Unruggable mentoring program, you'll get one-on-one support to safely move your Bitcoin into self-custody. I'll guide you step by step at your own pace, as well as making sure you have a rock-solid recovery plan in place. Take control, stay sovereign. Get in touch with me via X, Nostr, or send me an email at becomeunruggable@proton.me, and let's make you unruggable. In a world where water spills, fires rage, and pets chew everything in sight, only one thing can save your Bitcoin seed phrase: stamp seed. Don't let a coffee accident turn your Bitcoin into Bitcoin gone. With stamp seed, your seed phrase is engraved in metal, safe from elements, toddlers, and your own clumsiness. Use promo code BTCstory at stampseed.com for 15% off, because in the end, metal always wins. And now, let's get back to the episode.
Wow, out of all things you could have given an example on Wix, I was like, first I thought you said Wix like the website builder, but then you reiterated like Wix. I was like, Wix? I was like, wow, Jesse really kind of went wild on the examples. Like it could have been coffee beans or something, but then it makes sense what you said, kind of, the market issue they have, and them being expensive and they can't be, settled on Lightning. Who would have thought of such an example? But kind of that's the use case, and it's amazing to see, kind of how these issues can be solved, and kind of you found this niche in the market which needs solving. And when did this marketplace launch? Like, to be honest, this is the first time I'm kind of hearing about this marketplace, and I wanted to learn kind of, is this something brand new that launched like last year, or it's been a few years, and kind of what's the trajectory, kind of what's next with you on the marketplace phase?
The Magma marketplace has been active for close to 4 years now.
Oh, wow.
I think 4 years ago we were in the initial testing phase, and it was we kept it under our hat, but I think in May we actually launched the system. And out of it, we've seen that we had to come up with a new metric to actually show the returns that are possible on Bitcoin, which we called it the liner. And at the time, there was LIBOR, which is the London Interbank overnight rate, which is basically like the base level interest rate that you could earn on money. And it was kind of termed the risk-free rate. Now what folks use is kind of like the SOFR. Anyways, we don't have to get into that, but basically there needed to be something for Bitcoin to actually show this rate that you could earn from creating payment infrastructure. And so we came up with a liner, which is just the Lightning Network rate. And we've tracked it, over the past 4 years, and we saw that people, after transaction fees, you could earn, between 1% to 4% APY just by putting your Bitcoin to work on the Lightning Network.
Liquidity.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, this is in a self-custodial way, right? So like you open your own channel and you have full control. At whatever point in time, you can close that channel. Hopefully not when the fees are high on chain, because they'll be an expensive close. But essentially, it's not like a yielding lending product where you need to send your Bitcoin to some third party and then hope that you will get it back.
Exactly. Let's see. Initially, this came from Nick Bhatia, who wrote the Bitcoin layer.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation early on after he wrote this piece called The Time Value of Bitcoin. And that was an inspiration for creating the marketplace, because it was laying out the foundation that Bitcoin actually has a native like interest rate that is possible, and the Lightning Network enables that. And that's not been possible with anything else. And where does it fall on the risk spectrum? It's more risky than cold storage. So you've got essentially a hot wallet. But beyond that, there's not much additional trust or risk involved. It's essentially just the risk of something massive happening to the Lightning Network, which, I mean, we're already comfortable with the Bitcoin network and the protocol risk involved. Now we're layering on top of that the Lightning Network protocol risk. And this is just like Bitcoin, a system that is continuously being attacked and continuously evolving. And it is anti-fragile in that way. So I'm comfortable with that risk. But this is a much lower risk than lending, which I'm trusting you to, give back my money plus interest. And I don't really care for that risk. I don't want to lend my Bitcoin to anyone. I want to use my Bitcoin, but I also don't want to miss out on any of the gains that it has. So Lightning channels give us an opportunity to add utility to Bitcoin, get paid for it without giving up custody of the Bitcoin. It's really just me engaging with someone else in a smart contract, a simple smart contract that is a Lightning channel.
Yes, sounds much safer than, as you mentioned, the key word there with lending is trust, right? Like where the whole basis of this protocol is that there's no trust needed. So why go reiterate and go back to the old system of having to trust someone with your Bitcoin, which is essentially to some people, including myself, the most precious thing we actually own. So why would you give someone that precious Bitcoin and be kind of having cold sweats and not thinking, wow, what if that institution rugs me? But kind of if you want to get some return on investment and kind of additional cash inflow, like 1% to 4%, it's not 20 to 30%. But then again, hey guys, don't be greedy. Like 1% is still better than 0%. So like slowly it accumulates up. And if you compare it to bank rates, like what like traditional banks, they offer like 2 to like 4% APY. And with a bank, that thing is even less trusted than these lending institutions. Like that can just close, or they can give you the hardest time about having to prove different resources and documentations and DNA samples and whatnot to get your money. So I find that really interesting, and definitely something I want to be exploring myself more as I'm kind of navigating myself more down the kind of self-custodial Lightning route. But before I've got some personal questions for that, but before we go into those, kind of on the general sphere of Lightning, what would you say, Jesse, are some kind of the biggest challenges you see of scaling Lightning Network today?
I think one of the biggest pieces is just realizing, what is the issue? Because like overall, some people aren't aware of, or they're not diving into the nuances of how the system actually works. Like, when do I need to purchase additional liquidity? Like, how would this benefit me? And through that challenge and realizing that there wasn't really good metrics or like ways to explain Lightning to people without them having to deeply understand it, so we started running simulations, which is actually showing how much maximum flow could you receive. And through those simulations, we can actually derive what's the payment reliability, like when folks are attempting to pay you. Because if you don't receive a payment, you don't know that you missed a payment is really the key issue. So someone might be trying to pay you and they can't, and you're missing out on that revenue. So how do you capture that additional revenue? You need to purchase additional liquidity. And that, as soon as people start to grok that concept, then we've got a growing market for Bitcoin liquidity, which is just additive to the value of Bitcoin. So this really kicks off a network effect where you've got not only Bitcoin is an investable asset, you're also benefiting from the liquidity. Now, once people start to realize that they're building the store of value of Bitcoin and the medium of exchange, then we start to get a lot more institutional interest in this medium of exchange concept, where you could have someone like BlackRock who has, essentially issued shares of their Bitcoin, but not the Bitcoin itself. Well, what if BlackRock was now invested in making Bitcoin the medium of exchange and benefiting from that, using the Bitcoin that they have in their custody, or in Coinbase's custody rather, and using it to plumb the financial infrastructure of the future? That's a really exciting concept. And I think I have to just gently walk people towards this idea. And it is a big concept, but overall what we want to do is move the entire global payment system onto Bitcoin. And in so doing, we reduce the trust that's involved, all the systemic risk that's in the financial system. And we could do it on the Lightning Network.
Yeah, and I guess since you kind of, joined the Lightning Space network, or protocol, should I say the proper way? Like, in your eyes, has it evolved super fast, or has it been like a slow, steady race, and only now, kind of since last year, kind of things are really picking up the pace? What does it feel like for you personally?
The Lightning Network has been getting smarter. What we saw initially was this explosion, almost a panic, when El Salvador announced the Bitcoin law, because all of these individuals, hobbyists for the most part, realized that El Salvador can't afford to pay $3 per transaction.
Yeah.
We have to do the Lightning Network and allow them to access really smooth commerce, because Lightning works really, really well. And you avoid having to be in the Bitcoin blockchain, which is just a huge advancement that not only saves on cost, but also the speed of transactions. So it makes for a really nice payment experience. So since that time, where there was this panic about opening channels and everybody running their own Lightning node, we've built out a ton of the tools and a lot of the markets and infrastructure to make it a really smooth experience. And what we see now is more of a consolidation. So now not everyone is running a node, and they're not making channels to everybody that they can afford to. They're making fewer channels to select important parties, and that means they're being smarter with their capital and enabling larger payments. And I think we're on our way to improve that trend to enable not just microtransactions, but the everyday payments. So you being able to pay rent, or make an airline purchase, or a hotel reservation. Those are the everyday payments that are next for the Lightning Network to tackle, before we get to large payments where you could purchase a house over the Lightning Network. I mean, that would be just amazing. Do away with the idea of escrow. Yeah,
Indeed.
Here are the keys.
So yeah, this was my personal question. I think this is a nice segue to go into it. Kind of when you're opening new channels. So this is a total lightning loop question of myself. So recently, end of last year, I opened up. So I was a user of Albi wallet extension, and when they moved to self custody through my Start9, I installed it. Basically, started running my own self custody channels through the Albi hub. And when I go to open a channel, it essentially gives me like 4 options. Like, was it Megalith? Am I butchering it? And basically, so I've got 2 channels with Megalith and Zeus, but like I don't see other kind of. There's only a select like 5-6 people you can open a channel with, and kind of that was my question. Like, what if I want to open up like a channel with you? How do I do that? Or does it make more sense to just open a channel with some of these big players, and kind of what's the difference between me connecting to, let's say, Zeus's Lightning channel instead of just me making a channel with you. I guess the first question is, would be, we can just transact between each other, right? But like, what is the bigger implications, and why is that? And I don't know if you know the answer or not, but like with AlbiHub, you have a select of like 5-6 different parties you can open channels to.
Yeah, it seems a bit centralized, doesn't it? If you only have a couple of options that could be your liquidity provider, then we're kind of making what we fear, which is, Lightning having a hub and spoke model where you've got these centralized hubs. Yeah. When there's no reason why that needs to be the case. I have Bitcoin and I can open a channel to you. You have Bitcoin, you can open a channel to any of your peers, and that enables me to pay through you. So basically, there's no reason why you only need to be limited to 2 options. And as the end user, you don't have insight onto, well, how are the quality of those connections? Is that liquidity valuable to me? And so that's been like, after we created the max flow simulations, then we trained an AI model to say, well, what is the actual best connection for me? And can I purchase that one? So that's what we've been working on to create this. We called it Magma AI. And it's basically, I want a smarter connection because I have these 2 providers and they provide, different rates, but I don't even know what that's worth. And I need some additional intelligence to figure out how do I intelligently construct this network to enable larger payments anywhere. And so at the end of the day, like, you running your own Lightning node, through AlbiHub enables you to create channels anywhere you want. You don't need to rely on the Lightning, what's called like the Lightning service providers, because literally anybody can do that for you. And so a lot of our work at AMBOSS is, providing tools that aid in the decentralization, because anyone can be a Lightning service provider. It's not some special entity that you have to be. You can earn from your Bitcoin by selling Lightning channels, and you could provide that valuable service to someone.
Amazing. Yeah, you kind of answered also another follow-up question which I had, which I mentioned in the beginning, with like kind of the AI implication, and I was like, where does the AI model fit into your kind of toolkit? But then you just explained it, which I think is super cool, kind of, getting the AI help of you manually trying to figure it out and seeing kind of all the different charts and the data, but just, kind of typing it out and getting an answer. What is the best kind of option for you to open a channel? I find that super fascinating, and just generally kind of how AI has helped personally me streamline my whole life and everybody else in the last year is just like, it's fascinating. And the fact that it's also like, it could help me out with the whole Lightning opening operation is a super smooth kind of an easier entry for like the normies to go out and figure out, what do I do? Who do I open a channel with? Than trying to figure it all out on their own. So that's a super neat thing you guys are doing.
Thank you. With the AI that we created, we did like 2 different ways. One is altruistic and one is just optimized for your use case. So if you're if you're a business, you want all of your payments to work all the time, of course. But in order to do that, now we've got this like crazy network graph structure. And so like, where do you add a line in this, like add a new channel in this graph structure to actually make payments work like as reliably as possible? And so that's the challenge. So that's how we trained the AI model. But there's another one, is how does the Lightning Network as a whole function? And where could, if you're looking at this like a road network, where should a road be built that would help everyone get from point A to point B in the traffic network faster? And that's essentially the problem. So that's the altruistic mode, which is trained specifically on that problem. How could you like benefit everyone with the channel that you create?
Interesting. So I guess on that basis, and I guess that was kind of your latest thing that you've been working on out of your toolkit. what is kind of next? Do you have something you can share? Kind of, are there any additional AI features you're working on and looking to release, or something else that's coming out of the AMBOSS ecosystem?
Yeah. What's next on the horizon is making everything easier. I want to make it extremely easy to participate in these markets. And I don't, in the future, I hope to not have to teach people the Lightning Network. They'll just use it. And maybe they won't even know it. The other piece that we'll be working on is incorporating Taproot assets into our system, because we know that Tether is doing an incredible amount of transactions, and they announced that they'll be issuing Tether on the Lightning Network, and that's a complete game changer. I took a look at what fees they're paying for Tron, which is a completely centralized blockchain, and it's $3 to $6 per transaction is what they're paying on a completely centralized blockchain. And so Tether saw which way the wind was blowing, and they realized that they need to scale up operations and increase security and increase the censorship resistance. And they can issue Tether on Bitcoin itself, which is able to be transacted on the Lightning Network. And that's what Taproot Assets enables. So we're going to see all sorts of tokens actually move onto Lightning, but it's most important for stablecoins because they're operating at incredible scale. So AMBOSS is working very hard to make that ecosystem possible, where you can have very easy participation in the Lightning Network and be prepared for a rush of stablecoins that will be that value is going to be moving over the Bitcoin network, and we'll be able to deliver the benefits of all of that commerce to our users, the ones that are running Lightning nodes.
Yeah, I was going to say, kind of, do you think it stops with USDT, or other players such as USDC and other stablecoins will be kind of looking at what Tether is doing, and they'll be moving kind of onto the Lightning protocol as well? So I guess from what you just said, you expect others to follow suit, right?
Absolutely. What we saw is USDC is primarily moving over the Base protocol, which was created by Coinbase as a layer 2 on Ethereum. I don't know that Ethereum is doing well on their trajectory.
Ethereum's
And I would be
on a
concerned.
deathbed.
Yeah. So I mean, I would be concerned about continuing to build on Ethereum when Bitcoin is available. And
True.
there's nothing preventing USDC from actually being issued as a Taproot asset. So, if you've got the additional security of the Bitcoin blockchain, and the cost of transactions is vanishingly small, then yeah, you should issue your stablecoin on the Lightning Network and have instant transactions be flowing over the most secure financial network that's available, which is Bitcoin.
Yeah. Oh, it's an exciting time. I think this year and next year, we're going to see a lot of change happening, if we like it or not. But like it sounds like it's a very exciting time, especially with the new administration coming in the US, where kind of the last 4 years were this kind of like all anti Bitcoin and kind of crypto development, especially with the Project Choke Point 2.0, and now like with Trump and co, as I like to call it, with him and the whole everything that's happening, just kind of this invisible chainsaw that's just like shoving it up and changing everything out. I think now kind of it's an open field to like build on like all these ideas that incredible smart people have been holding on for such a long time, that we're like kind of like, oof, especially what's happening with Samurai and different people that are kind of looking at serious legal implications, that now kind of it's all open and you can really push forward. I think not just this year, next year, but kind of the next 4 years are going to be huge in the space. And I'm really excited for everything that's getting built. And, kudos to you, Jesse, and the whole AMBOSS team and everybody else, kind of building out these freedom tech tools, which are, without these tools, it's all theory, right? Like, but now it's an actual reality, and it doesn't stop anyone going to use it. And what I love, kind of what you mentioned, your next thing that you're focusing on is really making it simple. Like, I'm really a non-techie guy. As much as I'm involved in, my day from morning to night is Bitcoin, but I'm no way a coder or developer or anything. Like, I take my time with everything, and like, to me, it was already like a big achievement to, build my own node, open up my own channel, but it's still like, like making that process easier and easier, I think, is how we get the people in. And I just said, Jesse, your kind of vision of the future where you don't have to explain to people. And likewise for me, what is Bitcoin, what is Lightning, just the same way we don't explain to people what is, internet and what is Wi-Fi. You just kind of ask for the code to connect to it, and bam, you're connected. Like, there's no like, how does it work? And like, where does it go? And like, where does this come? Where does that go? What's the input output? I think that's the most important thing. And so it's really exciting that you're kind of really focusing that, making it simpler than kind of on the contrary, adding on more and more and more features, making it more and more complex. Because simplicity, now I love that saying, KISS, right? Like, keep it stupid simple, right? Like, the more simpler it is, the easier it is for people to jump on.
Yeah, I love that analogy of the internet, because it really feels like that's where we're at. Here I am running a marketplace for bandwidth, and that's what I'm selling. And I think at this point, people don't realize that they need bandwidth in order to, do all the downloads that they want to do. And now we're just doing that for money. So, like, can I create all of the infrastructure that would make really high bandwidth possible, where we can have essentially a fiber connection to the rest of the world? A financial fiber connection is really what we're trying to get to, and I think it's possible. All the incentives are in the right place. It's just a little bit complicated to use right now, and we're continuing to work to make it easier and easier to participate.
Awesome. Well, I guess my closing up question, like I do with all the guests, Jesse, is what is one piece of advice you would give to builders and entrepreneurs entering the Bitcoin space today?
Listen as much as possible and see what else is happening in the world that could be mapped into Bitcoin. Because if you really understand, what people's needs and pain points are, you can build phenomenal products that really solve some massive issues that's in the world. My background is, from environmental engineering. And so I was studying wastewater treatment. So, like, I didn't realize this at the time, but the exact same concept of like inbound liquidity in the Lightning Network was the same problem that I was facing, when a wastewater treatment plant suddenly gets a ton of water. Like, all of the, there's all of this flow reaching to your plant, and you don't want the, wastewater treatment plant to fail and overflow. That would be a disaster. So how do you plan that infrastructure?
Liquidation, no pun intended, right?
Yeah, like, you have to do the engineering work to figure out exactly how much you need in order for you to not have a failure ever. And so it's the exact same concept. But it's just, with that like engineering mindset, you can actually take concepts that are completely foreign to Bitcoin, use the same problem solving that solves other issues, and bring that into Bitcoin. And so you can just have a very stable financial system.
That's amazing. I mean, like, the fact, like, I never thought about it. And you're right. Like, there's so many things that you would never think are related to Bitcoin, through kind of your experiences or your profession or your specialization that can be applied. Because, a lot of times people say, like, at least some people that I speak to, they're kind of like, well, like, there's already so much being built on Bitcoin. Like, what can you build on? And I'm like, guys, there is, like, we're building out this whole new world. Like, there's so much to be built on. Like, just put your mind on it, and focus long enough. And at some point, something will click in, or go out and look at a project that you're really passionate about and see where you can, add value to it. Because all projects, especially in the space, are very small, and kind of any help that can be required and I think would be gladly accepted. So like, instead of you trying to refigure what's the next thing, just see where you can give some value and join the movement. And I guess that would be one of the best advice and moves you could do today, instead of trying to fetch the next big dollar paycheck, or call it what is it called, the promotion, the whole corporate ladder. And by the time you're nearly at the peak, you're like in your 60s and like farewelling from your career. That's not the path we want to be going through in life. So Jesse, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing all of this info with myself and the audience. Definitely super inspiring. I definitely will be looking more into AMBOSS. Where can we send our listeners that want to kind of learn more about AMBOSS and connect with you? Where would be the best resources?
Yeah, we're continuing to build out our company website, which is amboss.tech. So AMBOSS.tech.
Okay, perfect. And online for you, I guess you're on both on X and Nostr, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I also run a meme account, which is like my personal piece. So you could follow me as Jestifer on Nostr, just to inspire additional fun content on
Nice.
the emerging social network. But you can also follow AMBOSS on Nostr and X as well at AMBOSS Tech.
Perfect. Well, I'll include all of those links in the show notes. And yeah, best of luck, Jesse, with all the exciting things you've got going on at AMBOSS. Once again, thanks so much for coming on. We'd definitely love to have you back in the future. Maybe we'll spin up a roundtable discussion about Lightning developments and what's next and some problems and stuff. So I'd love to have you back on for that future conversation. And yeah, until then, if there's anything I can help with, feel free. My DMs are always open. I'm always happy to help fellow freedom warriors in helping any way I can. And I look forward to having you back in the future.
It was an absolute pleasure, Gigi. Look forward to it.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening, and definitely tune in next week for another exciting episode of Your Bitcoin Story. Until next time.